Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and been some extraordinary developments today with regard to Brexit. I could talk about a great many things, but I'm going to try and keep it relatively short and to the point. Basically, in the way it started out in the Commons today, Theresa May had ruled out requesting an extension that goes beyond June the 30th this year. Now, this would seem to be condemning us to a no-deal Brexit. The extension is too short for a referendum and MPs don't support her deal. In an interview today, the Leader of the House, Andrea Leadsom, basically said that the extension would be so that MPs could become comfortable with the deal. But this is to assume that MPs currently don't understand it. Yes, some of them are terminally thick, but another few months won't help that. The deal has been available for inspection for over half a year. MPs understand it as well as they can do by now. So what was really the point in Theresa May wanting to run down the clock to the point where she couldn't even ask for an extension? Because that's what would happen if she'd have got her extension up to June the 30th. And then to say to MPs, my deal or no deal, in the hope that they're going to crack and vote for her deal. But that would be to ignore the many Conservative MPs who actually want no deal. And the opposition would rather a no deal blamed on the Conservatives than a deal that lets the Tories take the credit for a parliamentary win and then a damaging period of impossible Brexit negotiations, which, because they'll have voted for this, they'll be implicit in as well. Not happening. Simply put, I cannot see any way that this withdrawal agreement will ever be passed. So either I or the Prime Minister is very badly mistaken. Of course, it's a lot less damaging to the country if I'm mistaken. But although that may have been her plan, the EU has spoken up. Donald Tusk, the president of the EU Council, which includes, of course, all the heads of the member states, and that decides on whether or not an extension is agreed, has basically suggested that the EU will only agree to a short extension provided that Parliament votes in favour of the withdrawal agreement next week. In other words, they are not giving her an extension simply to try and get her deal through. It's like, if your deal doesn't go through, we ain't giving you the extension. That, of course, works in Theresa May's favour, sort of. And it's possible that she's arranged for this set of circumstances in her discussions with senior members of the EU when she was pretending to get changes to the backstop. But wait, I hear you cry. She can't put the deal up for a vote next week because the Speaker's ruling. Well, Donald Tusk did also indicate that they could firm up with additional legal assurances. In other words, they add to the legal document that accompanied the agreement last time. That would mean it's technically a slightly different agreement, which would make it a different proposition for a motion, or at least it could be argued that way. Personally, I don't think the documents made it different last time either, but there you are, that was allowed, so I would imagine this would be allowed too. It's also clearly her belief that Parliament will accept her deal if the alternative is indisputably no deal. So far, it hasn't been indisputably no deal. And today's Prime Minister's questions showed you clearly why she's playing such high stakes. Forget about what the opposition MPs say. She doesn't care about them. Her own MPs are what matters to her. And you had Brexiteer Tory MPs saying that any extension at all was a betrayal. Remain MPs were saying that limiting us to a short extension was a betrayal. She's desperately trying to keep these factions together. But at some point, we will either leave the EU with no deal or we won't leave at all. Her deal is no use to either side and so surely can't get through. If her party actually would split without her deal, then it's going to split anyway. So I think she should take a risk and just take a path. Choose a side and dare the other side to split from the party. She can't keep kicking the can down the road. But like I said, I now think that she really believes that they will back her deal in the end. She refuses to accept that there's a core of her party actively working towards no deal. She's deluded. And unfortunately, this will not change. Those who've worked closely with her do say that she gets very blinkered and adopts bunker positions when faced with difficulties. In other words, she does not change course. Ever. Now, Donald Tusk isn't the decider, of course. But he is in consultation with those who are and would certainly only be making statements in line with their wishes. I think we can take it as read that this has been agreed upon. We'll only find out if it's a bluff if Parliament refuses to back the deal, which I expect it will. Some have pointed to the fact that Italy have said they're likely to block any extension. But again, do bear in mind that lying isn't just a trait of British politicians. It's pretty universal. It's almost certainly horse trading. The EU are pissed off with Italy at the moment for not behaving themselves with their economy. Italy is likely just pushing for the other members to cut them a bit of slack in return for their support for the extension agreement. Basically, whenever any politician from any country says anything, always consider the motives. The bottom line is that we will not know how the EU will actually play the extension request until Parliament actually votes for or against, more likely, May's deal next week. It's natural to suppose that a decision would be made at that point, but it may not. You know, they may just decide, sorry, no deal it is. Now, there is another intriguing possibility. I'll say another, it's like there were reports last night, which I must add I've not seen corroborating statements of, suggesting that the EU might convene an emergency summit on March the 28th. That is one day before Brexit. And also, by the way, the final day that Parliament in the UK is sitting. The day before exit day. Now, this could serve two purposes, I suppose. One, it would underline that Brexit is not the only thing of concern to the EU. They want to talk about other matters at this summit this weekend and don't want it to be swamped by May's nonsense. The EU wants to say that they've done their work on Brexit and the UK must make up its bloody mind. After all, Parliament still won't have voted in favour of any plan by the summit this weekend. And the EU say they want a plan. So they're not going to agree an extension this weekend. They basically said that. May has a plan, but it's not backed by Parliament. Two, it'll make Parliament sweat. If they haven't agreed an extension with only 1 day left to go, and they're basically saying, we'll give you the extension if you vote for this deal, then Parliament either has to take it or leave it, doesn't they? You know, there's no more time for negotiation. The thing is, however, I don't know if there's even enough time for Parliament to amend the European Union Withdrawal Act. Let's say May leaves the vote right up until the last minute. She really ought to put this vote up on Tuesday, but if she doesn't, I'm worried. I don't know. Remember, the EU only has one piece of legislation to consider, and it doesn't need amending. We have two, and one of them needs changing in order to avoid us crashing out, as far as I can tell anyway. Although I was reading something interesting on that, but that would be another topic. Also bear in mind that the EU want the UK to agree to this deal. They don't want us crashing out, and they don't believe we'll actually go for another referendum. I'm losing faith. So like I said, this was just what reporters coming out of Brussels were coming out with last night. And it sounded more like an idea than a definite plan. If it were a definite plan, I'm sure someone official would have made a statement. But it certainly would spice things up and make MPs sweat. It would also help Theresa May in forcing MPs to choose between her deal and no deal. The People's March this weekend, therefore, would now seem quite timely. Hundreds of thousands of people will march in London to demand a new referendum. Not a sad straggle of a few dozen trudging through the drizzle, calling for us to shoot ourselves in the head because they were fooled by unfriendly foreign powers. Now, would MPs seriously change their minds and suddenly vote for something that they have said was bad for Britain? As the people of Britain demonstrate the relative strength of feeling between those who want a new referendum and those who want us to crash out with no deal. That would seem extraordinary to me. Finally, it's been reported that Theresa May has said that she'll quit if anyone tries to push for a longer extension, which of course Parliament could do. Well, as a majority in Parliament want her to quit, surely that's an open invitation to push for a longer extension. While she was at it, she also started blaming everyone else but herself for the current situation. Nice to have a grown-up in charge of the country, isn't it? Frankly, her government has already been found in contempt of Parliament a few months ago, and I think they should do the same again and take over. Of course they won't, but I can dream. The only slim sliver of hope I see is this. Theresa May is forcing Parliament to accept her deal or no deal. Parliament knows that the majority will not vote for her deal. So they know doing nothing means no deal. Now, she may be deluded enough to think that they will, but they won't. Also consider this. So let's say that individually there are actually enough MPs sweating over this and they're actually prepared to crack and just vote it through. But of course they couldn't possibly say so publicly. It would just have to be something they do at the last minute while they rack with their own conscience. The thing is this, that still leaves Parliament collectively believing the vote will fail. Because you as an MP who's been voting against it might think to yourself, do you know what, if it comes down to it, I'm going to vote for it, sod it, I'm voting for it, I'm voting for it, I'm voting for it. But unless they have a hive mind and know that another 70 odd people are going to do the same, which is what it needs, you will still believe that actually Parliament as a whole is going to vote against it. So Parliament will still act according to the fact that Theresa May is basically dooming us to no deal. Now that's game theory. The only other option is that they'd have to believe that she was playing the bluff of her life. I don't think that's something you can count on, do you? Even if it is possibly plausible. So Parliament must act if it's serious about avoiding no deal. Theresa May has basically said, no deal it is then. No deal it is. They're not going to vote for her deal, or at least they're certainly not going to believe that a majority will vote for it, even if they, as I say, individually might. They know Jeremy Corbyn won't act. He's quite happy. They have to do it themselves. Is it possible that Parliament collectively will snap out of their catatonic state and finally do something? They're really running out of time now. We may find out tomorrow. But there we are. Try to keep it short. Let me know what you think, of course, in the comments below. It's quite an extraordinary day. Tomorrow, I expect to be much more extraordinary. Although I'm going to put up another poll for next topics, I don't imagine that's going to be for tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed the video anyway. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, and click the bell notification as well. Until next time, I'll see you later.